I've wanted to make this video for quite a while now, however I've been brushing over this topic as it's been quite irrelevant. However, it's reached a point where PTJ has been dropping information regarding Goo's backstory, and I want to make a video on it before everything gets fully revealed. So yeah, this is a video on Goo's backstory. Enjoy.
She lie to your face, I really don't get it. She say what you want her to say. At the end of the day, I'm still getting money regardless, I'm still getting paid.
Alright, so before I actually get into all the wacky theories and the actual meat and potatoes regarding Goo's backstory, I'd like to quickly go over most of the new information PTJ has been feeding us. So in chapter 527, which dropped last week, we got some context regarding how Gunn and Charles' relationship was initiated, with Charles finding Gunn and recognizing him in prison as he was working as the janitor at the time, and Gunn also recognizing Charles as elite. Shortly after this, Gunn began serving Charles Choi under the plan they had set, and Gunn's first task was to find Goo Kim and test him. What's pretty interesting is that Goo was immediately referred to as a genius the moment Gunn has spotted him, and this wasn't even limited to Gunn either, as he had stated that he had heard of a genius, meaning Goo is generally referred to as a genius across a vast array of people. He was stated to be on the run after stabbing his master, said master having absolutely no screen time, literally having only half a panel to his name, so there's no way for us to really determine whether or not this master is someone who should be held in high regard, or if he's just fodder and fell victim to Goo's inherited talent, assuming he had any inherited talent in the first place obviously. There's also no way for us to tell whether or not Goo had actually killed his master. It was only stated that he stabbed him, and him being on the run could mean two things: either he had eliminated him from life and been on the run from the police, or maybe he just stabbed him and was scared of the backlash he'd receive so he ran away. We also don't know whether or not he stabbed him legitimately or whether he just snuck up on him. To add to this, it was stated that he stabbed his master with the Hwarang sword that could even cut down goblins. There's a lot to break down here, but don't worry, I did it so you don't have to. At least I think I did. I may be wrong at the end of the day, who knows. Starting with Hwarang. This is a lexical device in Korean which is derived from two syllables, the first being Hwa, which means flower, beauty, or prosperity, and the second therefore being Rang, meaning man or youth, specifically in historical or traditional contexts. Adding these two syllables together would give us a name resembling Flower Knight, Flower Man, or something along the lines of that. The reason I make that connection is due to the fact that on a deeper level, Hwarang actually refers to the name of an extraordinary group of ancient knights from Silla, one of three kingdoms in the region of the Korean peninsula. Silla was a region that existed from 57 before Common Era to 935 Common Era, which seems to have had a vast mythological nexus, and Hwarang is actually a term which is held in high traditional regard in some areas of South Korea to this day. Furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, Hwarang refers to an extraordinary group of ancient knights from Silla, and this term actually extends to Hwarang Do having multiple meanings. However, in this context, it supposedly refers to a group of people. These knights were picked out from families held in high social regard and esteem, and while still in their childhood, they were trained as elite warriors. These knights gathered for all types of study, originally being arts and culture as well as religious teachings which supposedly stem from Korean Buddhism. However, this doesn't really matter, as the main point I'm going at is they used to train martial arts. They were referred to as the Flower Knights due to a multitude of reasons, mainly due to their physical beauty. However, another term being used for them is Hyang Do, which means fragrant ones or fragrant disciples. However, the main term is Hwarang Do. I won't go too deep into the history of these people, as if it has any significance then it will likely be explained in the story by PTJ in his own way, and if it isn't explained then it isn't significant really. However, one thing I will go into is the martial arts these guys used to train, and this includes three main martial arts. The first being Sisirium, which is one we have actually seen in the series being used by the likes of Mugen, Seongji, and Vinjin, with Mugen even pioneering his own version of this martial art. The second martial art used by the Hwarangs was actually swordsmanship, which is where the connection to Goo sprouts from, I guess. The third martial art is one which goes by the name of Subak, and it's an ancient Korean martial art which utilizes bare hand techniques. To date, only two versions of Subak remain in the modern era, the first being original Subak and the second being Taekyon, or however you pronounce it. Now, to sum all this up in a more coherent chronological order, the Hwarang Do, or in other words the Flower Knights, were an elite group of young male warriors in the Silla dynasty. Initially formed as a social and educational organization, the Hwarang evolved into a force that greatly contributed to Silla's unification of the Korean peninsula. Now, connecting this to Goo Kim, we can learn a lot. We can now make a direct connection between Goo Kim's origin and the Hwarang Do lineage, meaning it's not really as vague as it presents itself. We know that Goo Kim has been training ever since a very young age, which means he most definitely didn't seek out his master or his training out of his own will. He was most likely put in there by his father, who we don't know yet, or another member of his family. In addition, the fact that his master had direct access to this Hwarang sword means that he had a connection to them. Either he's a descendant or he knew someone who was related to them. We also know, as mentioned earlier, that one of the martial arts trained by the Flower Knights was swordsmanship, which was the main martial art that Goo Kim picked up to our knowledge. Now, this all remains vague and we're just gonna have to wait for PTJ to reveal this all, but I'm willing to make the assumption for the sake of this video that by any means Goo Kim was most likely related to the Hwarang Knights, making his nickname from now on the Flower Knight in my books. Now, what does this mean for someone like Goo Kim? Well, first First of all, this really lowers the possibility for someone like Gapyeong Kim to be his biological father. It was most likely a descendant of the Hwarangs whom we haven't heard of yet, and it also makes his fighting style much less one-dimensional. This opens up the opportunity for PTJ to take Gu Kim from someone who's strictly a swordsman and has mastered the way of the weapons he uses, to someone who could be a master of Sisirium, or Subak even. Now delving into the second part of this sentence, which is could even cut down goblins, to be honest, this sentence could end up having no direct contribution or meaning in the plot, and I wouldn't give a fuck, but I'm gonna entertain the idea just in case anyways. I'm sure you guys know what goblins are, but just in case you don't, this is a goblin. Nah, just kidding, these are goblins. The term goblins here likely draws from Korean folklore. In Korean mythology, goblins are supernatural beings that can either be malevolent or benevolent. They're known for their trickery and strength, often portrayed as figures that challenge heroes. Now when PTJ makes a statement saying the Hwarang sword could even cut down goblins, this could mean two things. First off, they're hyping the sword up, which means it's probably one of the most powerful swords in Lookism, and this could also open up yet another opportunity for a Gu Kim upscale, as we haven't seen him use this sword up to our knowledge, and he could unlock a new form while using it potentially. But the other meaning is the fact that PTJ is strengthening not only Gu Kim, but the entire story's connection to Korean mythology and folklore, as this statement was made by Gun, not even Gu, and it was made by Gun with the context that he had heard it from someone else. This makes it much more plausible for Gu Kim to be connected in terms of heritage or bloodline to the Hwarang Knights, I don't know why I said it like that, which adds a very interesting angle to the rivalry between Gun and Gu, Yamazaki versus Hwarang. However, what if I told you that none of that really matters? Yeah, that's not necessarily what goblin means in this sentence. If you're caught up with the latest chapter, 528, you would know that when Gun was approaching the Yamazaki syndicate's territory, he was referred to by the guards as a goblin. Yeah, it could literally just be figurative speech. It's like how we call someone extremely strong like Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali a beast or a monster, which even though they aren't literal beasts or monsters, they're so strong that we could compare them to that. It's likely the same situation here where the Yamazaki syndicate was referring to Gun as a goblin due to how strong he is. However, you could also make an argument for this being unlikely, as first off, the Yamazaki syndicate aren't South Koreans, and second of all, they made this statement before Gun's identity had even been revealed to them, and when it was finally revealed, they said that's not a goblin. They honestly just might have been really superstitious over there. We're just gonna have to wait and see what PTJ says. So yeah, that's gonna be pretty much it for this video. Using the information that I've enlightened you with today, you can come to your own conclusion regarding Gu Kim's backstory and whether or not he has hope to come back stronger, or if this is the end for him, which I really hope it's not, because it wouldn't make sense to gather all these secret friends and build up all this hype for him to become the king, just for him to get thrown in the trash like this.